Okay, we're rolling. We're on. Guys, welcome to the Sean and Sax show. New studio, new warehouse, new set. I think this is going to work great. What do you think, Bryce? This is going to work fantastic. We have a whole media room that we've set up now.
Yes.
So we'll have the Lions on Sheep podcast, our podcast. My podcast is making its grand and glorious return. It'll only be around for about 5 minutes before every platform bans me. I'm fairly certain of it. But welcome. Anything you want to say about the new thing?
Yeah, I'm excited to design it. Right now it's just kind of bare walls.
Well, it's fine.
Cool.
We only need a sign.
No, we need more.
We had 87 pieces of art in the last one. This one I think is great.
I loved it.
I think we're good. I think this is great. But you can decorate however you want, dear.
Thank you.
So, guys, we're going to jump right into it. We're going to use Saxony's words to start this podcast.
Oh, gosh.
Sax did a post this morning on Instagram, and I'm just going to read it. How about that?
I actually wrote it yesterday. I posted it today.
You did?
I was in a mood yesterday.
Mm-hmm. Oh, well, you just posted it this morning. Mm-hmm. So Saxony posted this morning a picture of her in the new setup, the new studio here. Mm-hmm. And she wrote the following. And we're going to talk about this. Naked and raw. Vulnerability has layers I've learned. I sit in this seat and share openly about my relationship, the struggles, the wins. In this seat, meaning the couch that you're
literal seat.
So gloriously sitting on right now. I open up about my health, my family, my past. I share my heart and my opinions, knowing fully that there are many who disagree or find themselves triggered by the things I share. However, I found this level of vulnerability to be fairly easy. The more difficult layers I've discovered are where I still hide in the subconscious, where triggers, insecurities, and shame still rear their ugly head and say, let's mess some things up, why don't we?
You should read.
Is that what happens in your brain? Is that what your brain says?
No, that was a comical way of.
Your brain says, "Let's mess some things up." Why don't we? Mine's a little bit more violent. Mine's like, "We're gonna fucking burn the entire thing to the ground today."
It's
I'm literally going to burn your entire world to the ground. But hey, okay, carry on. Back at it. Quote: I'd imagine that we all have this. We do all have this. Mm-hmm. Mine's just not as subtle. What's beautiful is the awareness to such a level of vulnerability, where we now have an opportunity to learn to love, to find love for the deep wounded shadow parts of us, the little spaces where we were told or decided that we're not lovable or accepted, where we feel like we couldn't possibly show that part of ourselves for feeling rejection or judgment. What if the very thing that made us know we actually are so loved and accepted was just shine light on those dark and hidden corners of our psyche? I love this process, even though it's rarely easy or fun. I love what I become I love what I become through every new quote. Oh, that's something to look at for myself. End of quote. Is that what your brain says too? Your brain is quite subtle, very docile, very nice. Yours says, oh, that's something we look at. Mine's like, you dumb motherfucker. You already know this shit. I think you probably edited this a few times to make it sound very sweet and tender. I'm going to finish. Stop interrupting me, dear. I love the progression of using my voice and being so naked and raw on our podcast. I love how each show we go deeper and deeper into difficult or uncomfortable conversations we in the world should be having. Today we're recording our 47th, I believe, episode of the Sean and Sax show, which is today. And I just know that it's going to be a good one. We shoot from the hip, completely unscripted and always straight from the heart. I'm grateful to all of those who listen in and are inspired by our vulnerability. I encourage you all to shine your light, speak truths loudly from your heart, and do it regardless of the haters that don't have the courage to step into the arena. Much love, Sax. And then P.S. We're moving to the new podcast location. Talk to us about this, dear.
Sure.
Vulnerability has layers. I sit in the seat and share openly about my relationship, the struggles. I open up about my health. I share my heart and my opinions, knowing fully there are many who disagree or find themselves triggered by the things I share. Talk about this, dear.
Sure. Well, as you were reading that, I was thinking about a previous version of myself where I was ashamed to talk about or to admit that I had an eating disorder. And that was like the epitome of the ultimate darkness at that time that I had the awareness of. And now I talk about it like it's what I had last night for dinner. I don't have any shame attachment to it. I've shared it so many times, and I've come to find love and acceptance and strengths out of that whole experience that I don't I don't really have, it doesn't feel like vulnerability anymore. It doesn't even feel like anything. I don't get much stimuli other than I'm grateful to share that in hopes that it helps someone else. But as I've gone on through life and I've peeled back these layers and then I find this new thing and this new thing and this new thing, it's like everyone feels so intense when it's first discovered. So for instance, like with me, with being married, a big one has been that if I give my heart to this person, then I have to accept that I'm lovable. And if my deeply ingrained belief system throughout my life is that I'm not necessarily lovable because of whatever conditions or whatever things that I was led to believe, or I was directly told or not directly told, that now challenges a belief system in that dark space. And so I have to sit with that and decide, am I actually going to accept that I'm lovable? Or am I going to hold on and still hide that space in me and try to have a functioning relationship? That's one example. I have lots of examples because ever since I started this, I don't like to call it a healing journey because that kind of means that they're broken and you're coming back from something. It's more like a self-discovery.
So I was just going to say that. Like, you know, you shared in here about the more difficult layers. Let's see. Where did you say? To find love for the deep wounded shadow parts of us. Mm-hmm. What does that mean to you? This isn't really an interview. I'm intrigued, and candidly, guys, we didn't talk about this before.
No.
We're shooting.
So if I'm hesitating, I have to I am slow to answer.
We're literally
questions.
live. We're freeballing this because I'm asking her this stuff on the spot. Like we kind of talked about the framework of what we wanted to talk about
in one word.
Yeah.
Vulnerability.
I literally said we're talking about vulnerability on the podcast today, and she's like, okay. So we haven't discussed any of this prior. But I'm intrigued because, like, you know, the reality is Saxony and I disagree on a lot of things. We agree on a lot of things. Mm-hmm. We see things very differently, which I think is very healthy, very good. Mm-hmm. I think it's what makes any relationship good. Any relationship, intimate, you know, business, family, like to see things differently and to be open to seeing things differently is a huge thing. But like when you talk about finding the love, excuse me, for the deep wounded shadow parts of us, you know, the more difficult layers I've discovered are where I still hide in the subconscious. Like, what is really to you? Like, what's wounded? Because I look at this different.
Wounded for me would be, okay, for instance, recently, something that's big for me is I have realized how much I attach to outcomes, and I attach to people, and I attach to things and ideas. Because it's like when you love something so much, it's like trying to stay happy all the time. It's inevitable that it's not going to be that way. Like something will happen and bring pain into your life because life just cannot always be happy. You can have joy in life all the time. You can find joy, but you can't always sustain happiness. So with me, it's learning to step back and say, it's very much like a Buddhist way of being is I've detached from my attachments to outcomes. So saying like, if this doesn't turn out the way that I want to, I get to trust the fact that that's the way it's supposed to be. As long as I'm leading with love, self-honor, love for the other person, love for the circumstance, love for the outcome, and trust in the path and the journey of it, that God has it. That I can't control the outcome. And in that, it's brought me a lot more joy and peace and serenity and a clearer mind in just trusting the fact that as long as I stay in love, whatever is supposed to happen will happen. And that's been a big thing for me.
Yeah. I think we talk about this a lot. And something that I believe with this conversation, I mean, the older I get, the more I get into this self-help space, the hippy-dippy space, whatever the hell you want to call it, right? Everybody's got these phrases and these terms of what's this and what's that and what's, you know, healthy and unhealthy. And we talk about these wounds and all of these other things. But like, I think back to my past, and you and I have talked about this. This goes against pretty much, if you're a Christian listening to this, this is going to fly in the face of every single thing that you've ever been taught. This is going to fly in the face of everything that you think you know and believe through church, through reading the Bible. So do me a favor, spare me sending all of the Bible verses to try and prove me wrong right now, because this is something that I've been on a quest for personally, and not only my relationship with God, but my relationship with understanding myself. Like, I think we're all perfect. We talk about these wounds and healing wounds. Like, you and I are both advocates and fans of plant medicine, quote unquote, this plant medicine stuff. And I no longer call it medicine, because medicine insinuates that there's something that needs to be healed, that there's some sort of sickness, right? You're sick, you get ibuprofen, you got a headache, you do this, you take that, whatever, there's something wrong. To me, that space, it's sacrament, right? It's a plant sacrament. It's divinity. It's coming to God. And I share this because, as I read your post and we talk about vulnerability, you and I are both on the same track with constantly opening up our lives. But like, I think there's a lot of people that are stuck in this consciousness of holding regret, holding remorse, looking at their quote baggage, looking at their trauma. My past is so fucked up. I have so many wounds. I've been wounded and scarred and hurt. And my dad hurt me and my mom hurt me and my ex hurt me and then my other ex hurt me and then my kids hurt me. And we're just in this constant state of like being hurt, being offended, being wronged, and all of these other things. And a number of years ago, I started looking at this differently and realizing that after I heard the quote by Thomas Monson, the former president of the Mormon Church, one of my favorite quotes, he said, "You are who you are today because of the choices and decisions you made yesterday." And as I heard that, I was kind of like, all right, well, if I believe the mantras that I say to myself now, you're a bad motherfucker, right? Anybody think about the mantras that you say? You're a queen, you're a king, you're a goddess, you're God, you're all of these other things. You're divine. If that's all true, and we're really having these conversations with ourselves, talking about the divinity, talking about the king and the queen conversation, right? As I started looking at this, I realized everything from my past has brought me to this moment. And if I truly believe that I'm the baddest motherfucker on the planet, which I do, like, then what traumas do I have? What scars and wounds do I have? I don't have any. I have a radical database and bucket of experience. I have experience after experience after experience, real world, real practical experience that brought me to this singular moment. How is any of that wrong? How is any of that bad? How is any of that trauma or any of these things that need to be healed? And I started reshifting the mindset to realize that, like, perhaps all of us are perfect. What if I'm perfect? Is it possible? I totally believe that it's possible. Like, the vulnerability aspect of this conversation, and to me, like in reading your post, is as you and I converse and peel back these layers, there's a lot of words that I think we use that don't rarely represent where we are. Because I think you are where you are because of your past. Like, you're living this life right now because of the past. None of it's, and again, take this with a grain of salt, friends. You can do whatever the fuck you want. But to me, I look at every single thing that's happened. It's brought you to this singular moment of perfection. It's brought you to this singular moment of knowledge. You don't have trauma. You don't have baggage. You don't have scars. You haven't been wronged. You haven't been lied to. You haven't been cheated on. You've been taught lessons. You've been taught an infinite amount. And if you're like me, you've been taught thousands and thousands and thousands of lessons, some that felt great, some that didn't feel so good, but nonetheless a lesson. And I remember very vividly after, and I've shared this is actually the first time I think I've shared this publicly, but after my first journey experience, I have a phenomenal shaman. Sax and I work with a number of different shamans. And I remember after the first experience that I had with this first shaman, it was euphoria. I was like, for 4 days just on cloud nine. I was like, this is amazing. This is the greatest thing ever. How come I've never experienced this before? And I'd been, I'd been invited to do, journeys and different things over the years. And on the fourth day, I went into hell. And it was like I went from being in heaven and euphoria and total peace and total surrender to absolute hell. And I remember calling my shaman and saying, like, what the fuck? What is going on? This isn't normal. This isn't right. And I remember her laughing and kind of chuckling and I'm like, what's so funny? Like, I'm in pain and this all sucks. And she's like, you asked for this. I said, what do you mean you asked for this? She's like, you wanted to progress. You wanted to open up the doors Did you think that every door was going to be rosy? Did you think every door was going to have rainbows and kittens and Skittles and was just going to be peace? She's like, you're going to open up doors and it's going to be dark as fuck. But the beauty is you're going to learn from all of them. All of these doors that open, all of these experiences we've had. I truly believe, and it's hard to live it sometimes because of our ego. Like, I totally believe that we're perfect. I think that everything has brought us to this space. Everything has brought us to this singular moment of knowledge, which is perfect.
That reminds me of Ram Dass. I'm a huge fan of Ram Dass, and he talks about becoming nobody.
I was hoping you were going to share that.
Because we live our lives. He's a great documentary on it. Please go watch it. We build our lives to become somebody. So we're like, I'm going to take that, and I'm going to take that, and I'm going to take that. And you put on more clothing, and you put on more labels, and you put on more things. And then you become this somebody, which has nothing to do with who you are. Truly, your innate being of who you are. It's just all this stuff that you've labeled yourself with. And so then there's this undoing when you become aware, you become conscious of, oh my gosh, okay, this is all this stuff. Like, so when you tell yourself, I am wounded, I am these are these labels. You're I aming, you're becoming all of these things. You become somebody, which is this label of I have PTSD, I have all this trauma, I can't have a good relationship. There's
I've been wronged, I've been lied to, I've been scarred, been cheated on.
And so dedicating your life to becoming nobody. And that's where my post is about, is the new levels of, like, for instance, if I get upset, I'm like, okay, I'm upset. I literally, and this sounds super elementary, but I will sit with myself and I'm like, what are you actually upset about? Okay, you're upset because...
That's not elementary, girl. That's like gangster shit,
well,
by the way.
But it sounds elementary in asking just a basic question.
Most people don't do it.
So, because I get mad at Sean all the time. I'm not mad at, but I get sad at Sean a lot.
Unjustly, for sure. Because there's no reason you would be mad at me.
That's
Anyways,
so
we'll have
adorable
another
for you to say.
podcast about that later.
So I get sad at Sean a lot.
That's a better.
My
Your ego
reaction
flares up.
I can finish. Let me finish, darling. So he does things that hurt my feelings a lot, and after enough times, I'm like, okay, I have a continuous pattern of getting my feelings hurt. What is that telling me? Because he can be an asshole all day long. You can be anything and everything you want. However, if I am allowing you to hurt my feelings, that has everything to do with me. That means I either don't have boundaries, or I'm falling into some false narrative from a previous version of myself, or I get to look at, on a physiological level, is there something that we need to look at with, the way the amygdala works. Like, I'm reading a book right now by Gabor Mate, I think is how you say his name. Brilliant book. It just came out. I cannot think of the name of it to save my life. It talks a lot about this type of stuff, and it talks about the illnesses that come from certain trauma restrictions, like people that are doormats. There's all this evidence of the diseases that come from people that don't express anger. They don't express
communication.
No, just it's emotion. It's all based on emotion. Or there's also ones that when people have really heightened levels of anger, these diseases are more prevalent. It's really fascinating. So there's all these things I sit and assess, because to me I know I'm not flawless. Nobody's flawless, and that's the beauty of being human, is we're on a journey of experience. And does that experience want to be that I'm going to continue and believe all of these hardships are put on me, or am I going to see if my feelings are if there's a pattern of, if my feelings continue to get hurt, that means I don't have a boundary somewhere, or I'm telling myself I'm believing something that may be not true so I'm taking something, not just picking on you, but anything external from me, and I'm saying I'm going to believe your anger towards me or your hurt words towards me, and I'm going to believe them. That's on me. That means that I don't love and honor myself enough to say, actually, I don't agree with you. I am not those things, and I'm going to hold a boundary and stay in self-love. And that's where I'm at on this becoming nobody journey I'm on, is this, it's like checking myself constantly. Why am I feeling this way?
Yeah.
What's the root cause of it?
Well, this is also Don Miguel Ruiz 101, not taking anything personally, being impeccable with your word. The reason I wanted to bring this up and the reason I wanted to talk about your post and this conversation specifically is because, you know, we both share a lot. And one of your reasons for sharing this is about the podcast and us opening up. And we get a lot of praise and also a lot of criticism with the podcast. Sure. Far more praise than anything, right? Mm-hmm. Which we appreciate. But there's a lot of negative that comes from it. And there's a lot of pushback, if you will, that comes from it. And how we read into that, is it really negative or is it just somebody else's feedback? But I think I know that this is important for a reason. And I wanted to use your post as kind of the benchmark for the conversation, because the one thing that you said in here that I want to share with people that I think is probably the most important thing is where you said, knowing fully that there are many who disagree or find themselves triggered by the things I share. Like, one of the things that we are radically passionate about, one of the things that I am very, very, very passionate about is this conversation around vulnerability, being truth, being your completeness, right? Mm-hmm. When I talk to people about being perfect, they're like, well, no, the Bible says and Jesus said and all these other things. It's like, great, I understand that, right? Mm-hmm. But the reality for me is this, and I think you would agree with this. I want to know what you think about this. Like, my truth is my truth. Like, my vulnerability, my pain, my frustration, my anger, my past, any of these words you want to put on there, any of these labels, that's me. Like, there are 8 billion people on this planet. There are 8 billion individual human beings with their own hearts and their own stomachs and their own legs and their own ears and their own eyes and have their own experiences, their own upbringing, their own social conditioning, right? Just because we all went to the same school doesn't mean that we all learned the same things. Just because we both had parents, some divorced, some not divorced, doesn't mean we learned the same things. Just because we all went to the same church doesn't mean that we learned the same things. My experience is not the same experience as somebody else's. And I think this is radically powerful, and what I really loved about your post and what I love about what we're doing, what our tribe is doing and becoming more and more vulnerable. Yeah. It's literally being able to live, you use the word in here, naked, multiple times for two reasons. One, because I know you like to be naked, physically naked. But two, because that word like really transcends everything else. Mm-hmm. Like, when you're completely naked, there's nothing to hide. Mm-hmm. When you're completely naked, there are no stories. There are no lies. There are no woulda, coulda, shouldas. Like, this is it. There's literally nothing to hide. I cannot hide anything. I'm physically naked. I don't have a coat on, a jacket on, pants on, underwear. Right. I can't hide my feet. I can't hide my balls. I can't hide my shirt, anything. Mm-hmm. Like, you're completely fucking naked. And that's as real as it gets. Mm-hmm. Like, that is truly, truly, truly as real as you get. It's as primal and primitive from birth to death as you get, right? We come into this world butt-ass naked. And you really transcend and start to think about that. And you start thinking about being naked with your emotions and with your soul and with your mind and with your experience. There is no combating that. You can disagree with it all you want, but does it make that disagreement right? Because it's my truth. Right. And I think this is what so many fucking people are so terrified of. And I was terrified of for 35 years of my life, and I'm still getting better at it, and I'm still trying to become a master of this reality, is being fucking naked and understanding that all of my past is good. It's brought me to here, and I can be proud of it. I can open it up. I can open up the vault and the doors and all of the things that I've wanted to hide from and wanted to put the shirt over or the socks over or the pants over. And when you get fully fucking naked, it is without question the most liberating, freeing thing ever, because you no longer can attach yourself to anything. Right. These words and these things about people calling you names or saying this or saying that, it doesn't have any relevance anymore. And you said in here, you talk about with practice, it's getting easier. Mm-hmm. And it's true.
And that's what I was going to mention is people probably are like, okay, well, how do I get naked? I don't even know how to get naked. The best way is to fact check yourself. Call yourself on your own bullshit. Like, if you're self-sabotaging, if you're projecting all of your partner that they're a piece of shit and they're causing all of your woes and you're self-sabotaging, right. Then you get to step back and be like, okay, why am I doing this? And you get to, that's how you become naked, is unless you're willing to look at your own bullshit and call yourself on your own crap and actually, like, be honest and say, yeah, I'm totally playing a victim. I'm totally self-sabotaging. I'm totally projecting. I'm totally in denial. There's a million things that come from fear. If you're not willing to always hold yourself accountable to those actions, you're never going to get naked. You're going to always be hiding something. And that's what I like. Is like, I'm like, okay, where did that come from? Why am I doing that? Why is he doing that? Why is she doing that? And that's how I believe you get to being naked.
What if I wanted to say something else to that. I'm trying to keep like the reverence of this conversation going versus getting typical 12-year-old me.
God bless you.
This
is a big step for you. I'm proud of you.
Even though I was still going to be 12, I'm sure going to talk about your vagina and your butt and some other things.
Oh, I thought you were going to be 12 in a different way.
Bryce
That's fine.
Well, yeah. What do you mean? I was talking about being immature.
I was talking about the 12-year-old that's
what?
Mom mad at somebody.
Scared little boy?
Yeah.
Oh, dude, we got all that. We got a whole thing. I want to break it down even simpler. You get naked by telling the truth.
Yes. And how do you discover the truth?
Here's look, you can discover it, you can question it, like you can ask 6,000 questions.
People are sometimes
let me finish.
Blind, though,
I know, but let me finish.
Bullshit. They're so
let me finish though. This is my point. Okay, let me finish.
Gunner's out of here.
Gunner, lay down. Here's the deal. This is how I've done it. Real talk. Like I can self-check and I can ask myself, and I do these things. But the truth is, like, I want you to think about this, friends. What are you thinking right now? Like, literally, what is your thought right now? Are you mad? Are you sad? Do you think this show sucks? Do you think that I'm being rude to Saxony? Is Saxony being rude to me? The ability for you to be able to orate what is in your mind in a split second is truth. Like, if you really stop and think about it, because I have shared this many times. Like, the first thought that you have is always truth. The next thought that you have around something is your ego. If you ask somebody a question or if somebody asks you a question, you have to pause and think, what do I say here that would be the least combative, that would be the least this, that, or the other? You're not telling the truth.
I don't know that I agree.
Hang on, let me finish. The simplest, I have found this. You can disagree. I don't really care. The reality is, for me, what exactly is my feeling around this and what am I experiencing right now? And I think a lot of people struggle with this because you can change quite a bit. I can change my political stance or my thought process by the season. I can change it year after year. I'm not the same person that I was 5, 6, 7 years ago. But I think this is one of the hardest things for people to do, is to literally share their exact thought process and the exact moment that they're having it. One of the things you and I are getting better at is like when we're off. And this is my point. I'm proving this. When we're off, right? If I say to you, what's wrong? Energetically, I know something's wrong. I feel it. It's there. The energy has just exploded. There's something wrong. And I'm like, what's wrong? You say nothing. But there is something wrong. What does that do? Anybody, or me, me as an example. When you ask me, hey, what's up? And I'm like, nothing. And there is something. And it's literally on the tip of my tongue, but I don't want to say it because of pride, ego, fear, resentment, past, all these other things. I'm then move into a space where I'm not speaking the truth. I'm not naked. I'm hiding something. I'm hiding behind something. I'm hiding behind my fear, my ego, any of these other things. But when you and I, again, I'm paying us both a compliment here, dear. I know you want to fire off something. But the truth is, when you and I can get to a place and we're getting better at this and saying, I'm super triggered right now. I need a minute to figure this out, to solve this problem, to whatever it is, that's real, right? Or by you saying to me, hey, what you just said hurt my feelings, because it did just hurt your feelings. Instead of spinning it out to be this or spinning it out to be that, you've done that to me countless times where, hey, you know what you just said really hurts my feelings, because it literally in an instant, it hurt your feelings. But instead of putting on the clothes and the layer and hiding, it's like, this is what I'm feeling right now. This is what I'm thinking. So when you think back, this is something that I did. As I started looking at my past, I started realizing what was the truth around some of these things. I loved being a rebel when I was a teenager. It was fun as fuck. I loved getting in trouble. I did. When I was a kid, I thought it was fun as shit. Like I was all about like pulling pranks and getting in trouble. I truly loved it. Like at that stage in my life, like I loved being a fucking punk ass kid, causing problems and picking on things. And I thought it was the funniest thing. This is the old school Christmas lights. You'd run around to people's houses. You'd pull one light out and they'd all go out. That was the old days before they got them all like jerry rigged now where that doesn't happen. I thought that was the funniest fucking thing in the world.
God bless
Now I
you,
look
Mom.
at that. No, but here's my point. I look at that now from my 43-year-old mind and I can be like, oh man, you know, I was such a troubled youth and I have so much regret and remorse. I don't. And I didn't at the time. That's truth. That is my truth. My truth is I had a damn good time doing that when I was a kid. I had fun fucking doing that as a kid. And I think the social conditioning and these words that we put on there, we have to carry around remorse and regret around all of these things. And I think that's that is what's causing us so much disconnect in our connection. And it's what's keeping people from being vulnerable, is being able to say, you know what? Yeah, here's exactly where I was. Here's exactly what I was thinking. Would I make the same decision today? Probably not. Would I do the same thing today? Probably not. But does it make it bad and wrong and triggers and trauma and all of these other things? No. Why? Because the truth is, I loved being a punk kid. I loved running around doing what I was doing, right? And we could go down the path with divorce and depression and all of these other things, but I truly believe the simplest way for us to become vulnerable is to just tell the fucking truth. Where are you right now? Literally in this exact moment, what are you thinking? What are you feeling? Because anything else, and we talked about this when we were dating. Like I understand that there's certain things that might not be pleasant for you to hear. There might be certain things that I say that I'm like, they might be pushing the envelope a little bit, but it's my truth and it's real. And then we get to have another conversation around, did that hurt your feelings? Did that not make you feel good? Great. And I get to learn and I get to process and I can keep moving. But I truly believe that like the reason that we are stuck as a culture and a society from being naked, from being vulnerable, is we're trying to say something that's not true and we're trying to be somebody that we're not.
Right.
Trying to, one, either fit in, two, not hurt somebody's feelings, three, play an image, play a role that we don't know how to play, that we really don't want to play. And that's keeping a lot of people fucking sick. It's keeping a lot of people depressed. It's ruining a lot of fucking marriages. It's ruining a lot of relationships. Instead of just saying, this is exactly what my truth is right now. This is exactly what I want right now.
Okay. I agree with you.
I just got the hand. Does the hand mean I'm done talking?
Yeah, we need a signal. So I agree with you to some degree. I would say that I am not necessarily the person that the first thing that I think is my truth, because I process information through, I need to feel it. And I also go through like a checklist of, is this about me? Am I projecting? Is literally my or my whatever it is, like hijacked? It's a physiological thing with fight or flight. Like I don't want to spit the first thing out as my truth. And we this is where Sean and I bump heads a lot. Is he's like, tell me what's wrong. Tell me what's wrong. This happened the other day. I told him 3 times, I'm not ready to share yet. I need to process this. I'm not ready to share yet. I'm emotional. I need to process this. Because I know for a fact that I am being hurt by something, and I want to make sure that what I'm being hurt by is actually that and not something from a totally different situation that I'm bringing into that. Because that's where most people do, is they'll fight about something here, but they're really bringing all this energy and resentment and past stories or whatever from the past into that. And that's where I try to be really cautious to not do that. So with me, that's not true. My first reaction is not my truth. And sometimes I come back even later and I'm like, I thought about that, and here's how I really see it. So I don't know. I don't know that that's true, because I feel like people get hijacked really fast and they react and they're triggered and they either like throw something back at their partner or they say things they don't mean. So I don't know if that's true.
Okay, so can I ask you a question? Okay, go ahead, finish that.
I would say if you're in a casual conversation, like if we're just talking about things that aren't going to bring up negative emotions, then maybe that is true for me. But I would say if there's some type of the heightened emotion, I don't know that the first thing that comes to my mind is my truth.
Now, let me ask you a question. Sure. With that specific instance, because we both learned from that specific instance, come to find out, it was a lack of communication on a prior instance, on a prior experience that had been, for lack of better words, bottled up, not discussed, not brought out, not processed yet, that caused that reality.
Correct.
So theoretically, wouldn't that entire experience have been, I don't know if squashed is the right word, or changed or handled differently, or not even had to have the experience, had that communication happened prior?
Possibly, yes.
Okay.
Because when we went rounds on this,
this is a good lesson.
I was coming from an emotional place where my heart was hurt because I wanted something that I'd mentioned, and I had an expectation, and I owned the expectation, and I was emotionally processing it. You were logically processing it, and I'm like, we both have truth here. My truth is this, and your truth is this, and we can fight a logic against emotion all day long, and they're both facts, but they're not the same thing. So in that, I was processing through how to let go of the fact that I felt like my needs weren't met because I put an expectation out that wasn't communicated as greatly, even though I thought it was. It wasn't until after the fact that I thought so. So in that moment, when you were like, what's the matter? What's the matter? What's the matter? And I said, I'm not ready to share right now. I need to process this. I was aware of all that.
Right.
And that's why when it got to the point where I shared it prematurely, which it never works out. With me, if you get me to share something prematurely, it's never going to go as planned. It's never going to go get the outcome that's truthful, because I'm feeling something and I need to work through that feeling before I can actually have a logical conversation with you about it, because I'm going to come at it emotionally. And you have your own emotional expression. Your expression's more anger. Mine's more sadness. And it's just the same thing.
When we're hurt, you mean?
Yeah. So if you come at me with anger and I'm trying to logically be like, what the heck? And you're just angry. It's like, or not angry, but you're...
One time
he doesn't like that I call it anger. I just don't know what. I don't know what other word it is. He doesn't like that it's called angry, but it's
intensity,
it's an expression.
Fire. I bring this up and I say this because this is a really good example, in my opinion, of the vulnerability. And I believe this, and we can disagree on that. And I think we disagree because we have two different radical experiences. You know, women very much are the feelers; they're emotional, and men are like, "Let's do it now. Give me the ones and the twos, the X's and the L's. Let's run the play, done and done." Right? But I really truly believe, for me, I can't speak for you. I can't speak for the 7.9 billion other people on the planet. Like, if I don't say what's on my mind right now, it's not my truth. And to me, it's like, I have found that the quicker that I get to speaking my emotions and speaking my feelings and speaking my reality, number one, the better I feel, but number two, the more real it is. And we can go round and round and round and talk about processing and talk about thinking, disagree, and that's fine. And I don't know that I don't know that it's a disagree. I think it's just different ways of doing things. Yeah. But I truly believe, in coaching a lot of people and seeing a lot of people and being in this game as much as anybody else trying to make this thing work. Like, the thing that's holding us back from being more vulnerable, by us, I mean a culture across the board, is sharing what's real, opening our mouth and fucking communicating about what we really think and what we really feel. And great, if we use the Saxonese model and it takes us 10 minutes or 10 years to process that, great, fine, whatever.
4 days
if it's
max.
Sean's model and it's 2.2 seconds, fine, whatever. But the bottom line and the moral of the story is, like, you sharing what's fucking real is what gets you naked. You being radically, if you want to be vulnerable, it's what's the truth.
We need to honor the other side of that, though. If we're going to be in relation with another human being, we have to honor the fact that that person is not a carbon copy of us. And that person, you can't force somebody to be, like, I can't force you to, be a king of amends, or to sit with things.
What?
Of making amends. Like, you're like, you don't like to say you're sorry. I love to own it and be like, hey, I'm sorry. Like, because that makes me feel better that I've taken verbal ownership to you. It's not that I'm a victim or I need to woe at your feet to get your permission to move on with my life. It's that I feel better when I've made amends to you. Right. I like when you make amends to me, but I know that you're not going to probably do that very often, because that's not who you are.
To me, it's changing. Like, I don't like to sit in the place.
But we have to be, if you're going to be in relation with another human being, you have to be empathetic to the other person is different than you. And you can't 100%, try and 100%. Force someone to be who you are and process at your speed. We've already talked about this in the podcast before, because Jay Shetty he's a monk that is now married to this bubbly little wife of his. She's adorable. And she processes like me, so he tells, and he doesn't. And it used to really frustrate him. And then he learned that there's more skill in what she's doing because she's trying to be fair and be reasonable and give time to bring down the tension of like, okay, maybe I'm overreacting. And he was like, hey, I honor that. And so we have to realize that, you know, like you get irritated with me and I get irritated with you about this very thing, but I'm learning to honor the fact that you're really quick to just spit it out. And that's just how you're wired. That's what makes you good at your profession. That's what makes you good at doing podcasts. This has been a skill that I've had to learn to talk on this podcast. I'm still awkward. I'm still quirky. I process slower, but that's just who I am. And that's okay. I'm different. Like I feel things through. And so I don't know. You have to honor that in your partner. You just, even if you don't like it,
you have to honor it, which we do. And I think 99.9% of human beings like get that they're different than their partner, and that's good. Honoring it is a huge step. I truly believe that the aspect of connection that you and I have is the vulnerability. It boils down to that vulnerability, and whether it's quick or slow, whether it's 1 day, 1 minute, 1 second, a week, right? At the end of that time period, whatever that looks like, however that model works for you, you have to end up in that space where you are truly telling the truth.
Absolutely.
You have to be in a place where, whether you think about it for 1 second or 1 week, you have to get to a place of radical nakedness, of true vulnerability, true truth. I guess is the simplest way to put it. Real fucking truth. I have found that the more truth I share, which is hard to talk about sometimes, and that's why I wanted to read that part where you talked about people disagreeing and this and the other. I don't look. You can disagree with me from your standpoint, and I'm not talking about you, but like anybody. You can post something on social media and have 10,000 people disagree with you, but it doesn't fucking matter because this is how I feel. This is my reality. This is where I am. And I truly believe that so long as that's your number one goal, you'll always win and you'll always continue to evolve and go deeper inside of yourself, where for a long time I tried to appease the masses, and it never allowed me, it never gave me the freedom that I needed to be vulnerable, to be real. When you're trying to stop and calculate something to give me an answer that you want to be socially acceptable, it'll always fucking fail.
We should talk about that, because that used to be something with us. We don't really have that issue anymore.
What?
You used to get really irritated with me because I didn't spit out an answer.
Yeah, so I didn't know how to communicate
You interpreted it.
Yeah, I had no idea how to communicate.
Oh my gosh,
with you.
like he would interpret it that I was lying. And I'm like, whoa.
Because that's how I, like, totally.
Right, and it took forever for him to see that, like, I'm not, that's literally, there's no deception in that. That's just the fact that, like, whoa, that you just gave me so much data, and I need to process through that data.
Right.
And, like, that's kind of cool, because I actually forgot that was something
we talked about that. It was a huge lesson for me is, number one, understanding how to communicate with you, because I ask you a question, I want you to give me something. And I truly believe that the more time you think about it, the more ego you put into it, the longer it takes, the more you're just completely full of shit. And it took me understanding that, you do process things, and it doesn't mean that you're lying, right? And it's just a radically different thing for me to experience, right? Circling back, not to, I mean, she stole it for me. You can't say circle back anymore. Every time you think circle back, you think of that redhead chick with the White House. Circling back, like, to the vulnerability aspect of the conversation, I mean, whether you take a minute or you take a week, it has to be truth.
Yep.
Period.
100%.
And I love the fact that you wrote naked in there, because I spent most of my life completely clothed, not naked, hiding, lying, and it wasn't until I realized that no matter what I said, people are going to judge me, but what's most important to me is me living my truth, me speaking my truth and living my truth. Do you like this outfit? No. You asked me the other day about your pants. Remember your
Instagram loved my bell bottoms.
New pants? You're like, hey, do you love my pants? I'm like, they're not my favorite. They're not the worst, but they're not the best either, right? And I was honest with you. I was like, they're not my favorite. They're great, but they're not my favorite. Wear them. I
like them.
You should. They're freaking great. Wear whatever the fuck you want. I don't care. Do. But, like, that's my point, is, like, in that moment, it's like, oh, well, I don't want to offend my wife, or she's having a bad day, or, I should just tell her that they look great and whatever. And it's like, no, here's my truth. And I think that's something, truthfully, that you and I appreciate about each other, is, like, when you eliminate so many layers and you just get naked with each other. It's a really fun place to be. It's a liberating place to be. It's a freeing place to be, because you can say anything. I know that I can say anything to you. I can say whatever the fuck I want. I know that I can say anything and you'll receive it. You might not like it. It might hurt your feelings. It might be aggressive. It might be this, it might be that. But I know that you and I have a relationship where, you know, when you ask me a question, it's like, don't ask me a question unless you're ready for an answer, right? And you're going to get whatever comes out. And it might change in a week or a month or whatever. But I think that that's truly one of the real strengths of our relationship, is that it comes in different forms and it shows up differently for both of us. But we know that it's truth, because without that, we have nothing. And I think this is what I pray that people take away from this conversation, is that the things that we're hiding from are the things that are literally the most liberating. The things we're running from, the staying clothed and not getting naked, is what's hurting us. We think that the vulnerability and the truth is what's going to hurt us. It's not. It's not. It's the exact fucking opposite, right? I've shared this story about, DJ and Jessica are friends, and he came through the Lions of Sheep experience, and this is a guy who didn't know how to have a conversation with his wife around sex and intimacy, and he had different things and different desires, and make a long story short, he went and made terrible decisions that he ultimately regretted, and didn't, made very poor decisions, and walked down on his marriage, and it ended up completely in fucking chaos. And his wife wanted to make it work. She wanted to make it work. And he comes to me one day. He's like, what the fuck do I do? What do I do? And I said, you tell her everything. You have to tell her everything. You have to literally open the kimono and tell her every single thing that you think, that you want, that you feel, that you desire, that you long for. And he's like, dude, if I do that, she'll leave me. I'm like, well, you have, what are you going to do? Continue to dig the hole deeper? At least you'll know now. If you share the truth with her, at least you'll, number one, know, and then she'll have the cards that she can play her hand with. Yep. And if that means she leaves your ass, she leaves your ass. If that means y'all work it out, long story short, they went out to dinner. He told her everything. And I'll never, as long as I fucking live, forget 2 days later when he calls me, he's like, in tears. He's like, dude, I told her. I said, hey, and? Where are you at? He's like, she looked at me and said, why didn't you tell me any of this sooner? I want the same thing. And I'm like, you put yourself through fucking hell for years. Because you simply didn't tell the truth. You simply didn't open your fucking mouth and tell the truth. And I think that is truly the nemesis of relationships right now. That is truly what's going on in our culture, is that we're trying to create the perfect message with the perfect oration, with the perfect delivery and the perfect words so that nobody gets offended, and we're just not telling the truth. And at the end of the day, the people receiving bullshit are affected by that, and the people spitting the bullshit are affected by that. And so long as you keep sharing shit that is not radically vulnerable and not from your heart and not what's in your soul and not what's in your brain and not what's in your mind, you're lying. I mean, there's no other way to put it. You're just fucking lying. So my challenge to people listening, and you and I are on this quest as much as anybody else, is to just keep getting more and more and more honest, more and more and more vulnerable, opening up more and more and more, and really accepting it and really loving that about somebody. I love that about you. Yeah. I love the fact you can tell me, hey, you know what, fuck off today. I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to see you. And I'm like, okay, cool.
But there's also the truth is if your partner's if they're being honest with you about something that maybe you don't like maybe about them, you have to be able to take that feedback. Totally. Because that's how you build trust. Like, we have been doing this dance where, he gives me feedback and it's uncomfortable. I give you feedback and you don't like it. And the truth is do you want the truth?
It's exactly.
And will
you
take it as feedback, or will you take it as judgment? Because our little sad ego victim, blah 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 blah, is just like, you're judging me. Fuck you.
Right.
Like, yeah, or you can say, oh, this person loves me enough to tell me the truth. Yep. Maybe because the relationship, like an intimate relationship, reflects all of our shit. Yep. And so it's like, do I trust this person enough to take their feedback to heart, or am I going to just be a prick and to take it as judgment and tell them to fuck off, and basically you will cripple that relationship.
Right. Yeah. Would you rather have truth, or would you rather feel pleasant? But in the pleasant, you're also in the question. You're also in the wonder. You're also in the insecurity. And that's the hard part.
Pleasant is not a word that I would say we go to.
No, I mean,
in the short term. In the long term, it's pleasant.
That's my entire point. Is I would rather have the truth and maybe get my feelings hurt a little bit. Maybe have to check my ego. Maybe have to look at whatever, then wonder, are you telling me the truth? Are you being vulnerable with me?
Yeah.
Are you being honest with me? And I want the same thing. Like you and I, of all of the conversations I think that we had prior to getting married, I think that was probably the one that came up the most. That was probably one that we talked about foundationally more than anything else, is that truth is the thing that we want more than anything else. And we had to vow to that. Like, look, we won't work if we don't have that. If we don't have radical fucking honesty. And it's a dance, and we're learning to dance that dance. But I would be hard pressed to say that, like, what makes us work is that radical vulnerability, that radical honesty, and then having the respect and the true compassion and empathy to hold that space.
Right.
I don't need to like it. This isn't a conversation, friends, about liking it, about feeling good 24/7. Like you said at the very beginning, you don't feel good all the fucking time. I don't need to feel good all the time, but I want truth all the time. I want to know what's real. And this is, again, not to beat the horse to death, but this is the great dilemma, in my opinion, of our culture and our society, is that very few people tell the truth. Very few people are vulnerable. Very few people talk about how they really feel, what they really want, where they really are, in an effort to try and cause the least amount of contention, ruffle the least amount of feathers, make the least amount of waves. And the truth of the matter is, what you're doing is you're harming yourself. You're harming yourself. You're lying to yourself. You're lying to your people. You're lying to your tribe. You're lying to your significant other. You're lying to your children. And at the end of the day, like, nothing good will come from that.
Right.
However, the flip side, get radically fucking naked. Get radically naked. And I use this example all the time because it's really easy to, I like the crayon example, right? Break it down for me with some crayons. Like, if you can't describe it in crayons, imagine everybody's biggest fear. Like, everybody, when you were a kid, everybody had nightmares about standing up in the class naked, right?
I don't know that I did.
I bet you did. I guarantee you at some point in time.
Mine was like my teeth falling out. That was
fine. Standing up in front of the, what? You had nightmares about your teeth falling out?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, that's actually a thing.
I think everybody at some point in time has had a nightmare about walking into the classroom naked. You're standing in front of the class naked. My point is very simple with this. You can continue to have that nightmare over and over and over and over and run from it and fear it and fear it and fear it. But just stop and take a second and think about what happens when you get naked in front of the class. Are you worried about people laughing at you? Cool, they're going to laugh at you and they're going to stop. You worried about people judging you? Great, they're going to judge you for 5 minutes. They're going to talk about what you're playing with, not playing with, whatever, for 5 minutes, and then it'll be over.
Yeah.
But here's the cool part. You've now done it. You're now naked in front of the class. And so you can get naked in front of the class all the time now. Now there's no fear or remorse or regret or anything, because once you've done it, you can keep doing it. Yeah. And I think that's what people are so fucking afraid of, is if we dance and we move away and we shy away from the truth at all costs because it's scary, because it's hard. And what people don't understand is it's that one experience with it that will keep, it's like you keep coming back for more.
Yeah.
Once you've got naked in front of the class and everybody knows what you're playing with, they're never going to make fun of you again. You're done. You already did it. Like, game over. You conquered that fear. You could do it all day long now. You know what I'm saying? It's the same thing with vulnerability. It's the same thing with truth. We keep holding on to it, hiding it, suppressing it, and all it's doing is building more and more and more fear, more and more resentment, more and more bullshit. When it's like, just fucking get naked. Just get fucking naked, put all the cards on the table, and watch what happens. Watch what happens. Everything you think is going to be burned down, ruined, whatever, it might actually become 1,000 times better. Yeah. And then all of a sudden you become addicted to that reality.
Let go of the attachment to the outcome.
Totally.
Tell the truth. Whatever the outcome is what's meant to be.
Exactly.
And that's the most freeing, liberating feeling in the whole world is, I have spoke my truth. I can sit with honor. I can sit with peace knowing that I spoke my truth. And whatever happens externally from me, wherever that takes me, is exactly where I'm supposed to be. And that's personally, like, without a doubt, that's alleviated all the anxiety that I used to carry, like the depression, the mind loops of how do I, risk assess a situation? How do I get what I want? And that ultimately is, you're gaslighting yourself. You're manipulating yourself. You're manipulating the situation. If you're doing that, if you're not speaking the truth, because you're trying to get an outcome that you want,
Bingo.
And it might not be actually where you're supposed to be. And this is totally not off topic, but this might be a whole nother episode. Is I know I empathize with women. They, on a biological level, we're programmed to not engage in conflict based on safety. So we're hardwired because a man is bigger and stronger and fiercer. Women are less likely to be in conflict. We will avoid conflict. No, there's always exceptions, but this is what I studied in college, anthropology. We are programmed to not put ourselves in harm's way by someone who is a bigger threat to us. So this is why I have a lot of empathy for women who have a hard time. Like, I'm one of them. I don't like conflict. It makes me really uncomfortable. There's a lot of fear. But the truth is if I'm in a relationship with someone who I know is not going to harm me, then I get to fight against my biological programming and say, listen, I know that this is uncomfortable. I'm talking to myself. I know this is uncomfortable, but it's okay. Conflict is not necessarily dangerous. And that's a real thing. And then I know that there's a masculine side of that. Men were, men expressing their emotions, they can't be seen as weak, God forbid. Like, can't be seen as not having their shit together, because they're trying to keep the kids happy, the wife happy, all the bills paid, the business is run, all this stuff. And God forbid I have a weakness. God forbid I have I shed a tear. And so then they're pulling back from their attachment, or from their from being truthful around their emotions, and that's usually expressed as anger. And so these are both just things to be aware of, that we're just made that way. And as long as we're in a safe situation with a safe partner, then we get to explore those roadblocks.
Yeah. I think to establish, there's probably some people going, well, I'm not safe. What do I do?
Then get out of the relationship.
Well, yeah. Or
I got that question earlier today.
Okay.
I
have a different answer to that. The only way for you to become safe is to become naked. The only way for you to truly know whether or not you can be safe is if you're playing with all the cards. This is probably the hardest part.
Oh, I was referring to actual physical safety.
Right. Yeah.
Someone beating you. I'm like, if someone's physically harming you,
I'm talking about the safety of being vulnerable.
Yes.
And you're talking about with a partner being safe. Yeah. Like, one of the things that people don't realize is that if you've been in a marriage or relationship for 5, 7, 10, 12 years and you haven't established this pattern, and your pattern is bullshit, your pattern is not being vulnerable.
Self-sabotage.
You're in this pattern. A lot of people go, well, how do I change that? I'm not with a safe person, and I'm not with a safe person. What do I do? The only way is to do it.
Correct.
Well, who goes first? Who goes what? I don't give a shit if you
always
fucking sit down and say, hey, here's the deal. I'm going to put all my cards on the table. The reality is, unless you actually do it, you'll never know. And if you're in a position, and I know this because I did this. I literally did this. Like, I spend most of my life in that space. And like, it's the same thing when you and I got married. We were dating. I was like, I can continue to have fear and all of these other things. The only way I will know that I can trust you with my heart, that I can be radically honest, that I can be vulnerable, that I can be quote unquote safe, is to fucking do it. And that's it. Like, there's no other way to do it. There's no pussyfooting way. There's no like easing into it. There's no anything. It's like, all right, here's the deal. I'm going to put all the cards on the fucking table. And you have the ability to completely like punch me in the face and run away or take them or not take them. But I very, very, very much encourage people, because I know there's a lot of people listening to this show that wean a lot of, information from us and like what to do and how to do it. And that's cool. And there's a lot of people that have a lot more experience than us, which is great. But if you're in a position right now where you haven't been vulnerable, and you've built a pattern of not being vulnerable, and you've built walls, and you've built, all of your layers to try and protect yourself, to protect yourself from hurt, to protect yourself from abandonment, to protect yourself from all these other things. Literally, there is no other way for you to overcome this. There is no other way for you to accomplish this than actually doing it. Like, you will never, ever, ever not be afraid of getting naked in front of the class until you get naked in front of the class.
Yep.
It's it. There is no other way. Like, I don't give a shit what books have been written. I don't care what psychologists, psychiatrists, shamans, medicine people want to talk about this shit. The only way to overcome fear of being vulnerable is being vulnerable. The only way to overcome fear of being naked in front of the class is getting naked in front of the class. The only way to overcome the fear of talking to your wife about your desires, about your dreams, about your visions, about your anything, is to fucking do it. And vice versa. Ladies, the only way to connect is to actually fucking do it. There is no other way. And so the thing you fear the most, the thing we hide from the most, the thing we run from the most is literally the thing that will actually free you from the fear. It's the only thing. It's the wildest fucking thing.
The thing I've learned is it's like being afraid of being abandoned. A lot of people are afraid. Yeah. They have abandonment issues, whatever. But those people, I used to be like this, and sometimes I catch myself still being like that, is I will self-abandon before I'm abandoned.
Right.
I'll either abandon, I'll be like, fuck this. This is not what I signed up for. But truly, I'm self-abandoning from boundaries, from honoring how I feel, from speaking my truth. I will create whatever, we all do this. We will create the monster that we're scared of.
Right.
In a way of protecting. Our ego is a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing that keeps us safe. It hedges bets. It's like always on the lookout for danger. It's always trying to strategize to keep us safe and protected. And that's beautiful. However, it can also consume your entire existence because all you're doing is trying to avoid fear.
Right.
And
avoid then you pain, avoid frustration, all of it.
Then you manifest fear by avoiding fear. It's like whatever you
avoid contention in your relationship, thereby you pour fire literally on the contention. Yes. You avoid truth in your relationship, thereby and you're just literally pouring gas on the lies. You're afraid of vulnerability in your relationship, so you're not vulnerable, and all you're doing is feeding the monster of fear that is vulnerability. It's this is why we say, like, it is the most important thing, not just for your relationship. Like I decided long ago that I wanted to be free. Like, it wasn't necessarily just so I could find you and be married and be a great dad. I just got sick of fucking hiding. I got sick of lying. Yeah. I got sick of pretending. I got sick of being sick. I got sick of being somebody that I wasn't, talking like somebody that I wasn't. And I realized it was like, I'm harming me more than anything. I'm fucking me over more than anything. I'm struggling more than anything. Like, so what's the alternative to this? What's the remedy for this? Okay, go get naked in front of the class. You're terrified of getting naked in front of the class? Walk up to the fucking front of the class, take off your clothes. You're terrified to have a conversation with your lover about sex? Sit them the fuck down, grab a bag of potato chips, have a conversation about sex. I mean, potato chips or whatever. You can do it or not do it. I'm just a fan of potato chips. You're terrified of fucking starting a business? Go fucking start the business. Yeah. You're terrified of the conversation with your mom, with your dad, about your past, about your history. You're terrified about talking to your brother, your sister, or your boss. Go fucking do it. It's like the thing you fear the most. It will consume you. And the thing is it'll just get worse and worse and worse and worse and worse to the point that it will literally take on its own life to where it's not even real anymore. You don't even know what's real anymore. And when you and I struggle, I've found this, when you and I struggle, it is based 150% on you and I living in our own fear and not communicating, 1,000%. Not connecting, period, end of story. It's I'm worried about hurting your feelings, or you're worried about hurting mine, or you're worried about what I'm going to say. I don't give a fuck. Like, the quicker we get to the truth, the quicker we can heal whatever pain we got, deal with whatever we got to deal with, and move on to the next thing, you know? But I could not say this enough and can't beg people, like implore people. The thing you're fearing the most, the vulnerability, being seen, handing somebody your heart, the quickest way to get over that is to go fucking do it.
You must speak truth, but you also must hear truth.
Yeah, 100%.
I would say that's probably harder than speaking truth.
Totally harder.
Is receiving truth.
It's totally harder. It's way harder.
At least for egomaniacs.
Like, you calling me an egomaniac, or you an egomaniac?
It was a
general statement.
General statement.
Yeah, it is hard.
Because but being told that you may be disappointing your partner, or they may one of your actions or the way you're speaking or something you're doing may be hurting or harming or unjust or unfair to that person or mean. It's like you have to be like, oh shit, Maybe I am being those things, and I don't want to be those things because I am trying so hard to be a good person.
Right.
But now you're telling me I'm not a good person, so now I'm going to make myself. Now I'm going to burn the whole thing down because now you're just saying I'm an asshole. It's like, no, you have to be able to hear that little bit of feedback and then build your life. I've just found that it's harder to hear than it is to speak.
Totally is. It's way harder to hear. But I've also found that the more I get vulnerable with myself, the more I'm open to it.
For sure.
You know what I mean? And I truly believe. I'm not going to take counsel from somebody who's not going to be honest with me.
For
and
sure.
you know that. I mean, I think that's one of the best ways to overcome is when you share stuff with me. I know you're sharing it out of love and you're sharing it out of true desire for us to grow. Because at the end of the day, and again, hear me when I say this, friends, like, if our relationship burns down, guess what? I told you this not too long ago. If we don't make it, you don't make it. Like, we both fail. We both fail. Like, if our relationship doesn't work out and it ends up in this massive catastrophe.
It wouldn't, but yes.
But what I'm saying is, like, there's a lot of people that have that mindset. Like, if your relationship doesn't work out because you are not willing to be vulnerable, that's on you. That's 100% on you. If you burn it down, you're the one who fucking lit the match.
Yep.
There's 100% accountability on this. And this is where I wish that I could, like, shake the shit out of people and get them to understand how fucking liberating being vulnerable is. How fucking freeing it is to tell the truth. Like, how unbelievably peaceful it is to not be carrying around baggage, to not be lying, to not be, this, that, or the other, or trying to play into something or be somebody that you're not. It's terrible. The flip side is it's absolutely liberating. Why are you smiling?
Because you're cute.
I know. I am. I know. Very much so.
No, I was just thinking about how far we've come.
Yeah. True story. Both of us really sucked at a lot of this for a long fucking time. Let me rephrase
but the whole time we
still suck at a lot of this stuff, but we're getting
totally
so much fucking better. So much
What's really
better.
funny is through the whole process, we've always thought we're really freaking awesome, though. It's kind of funny.
And then you get into something and you're like, dude, oh shit. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I could have just done this and made my life that much easier.
Oh, I had to burn down freaking 2 weeks of my life. Oh.
Yeah, I was carrying around all this shit because I just wasn't willing to say something because I was scared or whatever. It's like, Jesus, man, what am I doing? But I mean, you're right. We have come really far, and I'm proud of both of us. And again, like, maybe we say it the right way, the wrong way, up way, down way on this podcast. I don't fucking know. We say it our way.
And I just
we say the shit that we want to say. And one of the reasons that I don't listen to any of our podcasts and I hate listening to anything of myself is because I'm so hypercritical. Because I'm like, fuck, why did I say that? I shouldn't have said that. I don't know if people know that, but I don't listen to any of our podcasts. I don't watch any of my videos. I have this phobia. Like, I've walked in the room when you're watching one of my videos or something like that. I'm like, shut off. Shut off. I don't want to hear it. I don't hear it. Because I get so hypercritical about what I said or how I should have said or this or the other. But that's one of these points that we're talking about. Like, me just overcoming my own reality of saying, I'm going to say whatever the fuck comes out of my mouth and people are going to judge it. Great. I'm going to even judge it. Like, it even boils down to me judging it. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, we have done good, babe. Yeah. I've done a great job.
Yeah.
I've done a great job.
You've
done well. You've done well, babe.
Quite a ways. I've loved you the whole time.
Any final thoughts on this, babe? We could talk for hours and hours and hours
we
about
really could.
Vulnerability and share countless stories.
Yeah. And if you find yourself in a situation where it's just like you're also choosing that situation.
Yeah.
If you've been vulnerable and you're just banging your head against the wall, like, realize that you're choosing.
Yeah.
You're choosing that in your life.
Yep. It's true. Just imagine for a second, final thoughts, like, there's going to be a time when you don't have another option. There's going to be a time when, like, you're laying on your deathbed or something like that where you're like, fuck, man, I could have said so much more. I could have been so much more and done so much more. Think about how much more incredible my relationship could have been with my wife if I'd have just told her this, or if I'd have just shared my heart, or if I had just trusted
myself.
Yeah, if I'd have just, like, learned to trust and trust myself. I promise you there'll be a day, like, but you're literally listening to someone who has struggled with this his entire life. I have struggled with this my entire fucking life. I spent the vast majority of my life completely full of shit, completely lying, completely hiding, completely pretending. And it was one of the hardest things on the planet to just start getting radically honest and vulnerable, But it's been literally one of the probably single greatest thing that I've ever done in my life is just learn to tell the truth and not be attached, like you said, not be attached to it. Just tell the fucking truth. Be radically vulnerable. You ask me, what do you want? I'll tell you exactly what I want. What are you thinking? I'll tell you exactly what I'm thinking. It's so freaking, so liberating, so free. Right.
Little wins, too. Little wins. Just, it's not, you don't have to fix everything overnight. It's just little wins. Like, I had a little win the other night, and I'm still proud of myself. It's so little. It's so funny, but it was so big to me.
What is it?
Stop.
You just got your nails done. You're already picking them off. What are you doing?
I cut my finger. I've been playing with it. When we were having a moment, and I finally just looked at, or I don't even know if I looked at you, but I was just told you, I was like, I feel like you're too hard on me. I feel like you're hard on me. And I don't think I've ever said that. And I said that completely like unattached from my heart, not judgmental. It was more of just like, I just feel like you're hard on me. And it was kind of interesting because you didn't react. You just sat there like, and I didn't feel bad. And that's how I felt. And it was cool because I thought, that's just a simple sentence. And it wasn't even to make you feel bad. It was just like, that's how I was feeling. And the fact that I was like, expressed that that's how I felt at risk of you reacting or it hurting your feelings, it was a little win for me because I just thought, that's how I'm feeling. Like, it is what it is. Like, it could be wrong, but feelings aren't necessarily wrong. But it was a win for me.
Good job,
If
babe.
you know me, that was a big win. Because I usually am like, well...
We're simple people.
Huh?
Good job. I said we're simple people.
Totally.
Little things. It's the little things, you know?
That super sounds basic, but it was big for me.
That's good, though. It's those... I mean, look... It's... Yeah. You don't get into Cooperstown. You don't get into the Hall of Fame by swinging for fucking home runs every single time. It's little teeny wins.
Yep.
You let those little wins compile into bigger wins, and next thing you know, you're in the Hall of Fame.
Amen.
Amen. All right. Anything else, dear?
That was great for winging it.
Little
well, we
quickie.
always wing it, but...
Yeah. All right, guys, we love you. Appreciate you. If this resonated with you, please share it. Leave us some comments. Give us some love. And we'll see you next time.
Love ya.
Bye.
Bye.